Who of you is old enough to remember the What's in a Wonder Ball jingle? Classic jingle. Plays in my head from time to time and makes me wonder what's in a 30-minute Nintendo Direct. How much can Nintendo pack into the ball of an approximately 30-minute Nintendo Switch 1 Direct on the heels of a Nintendo Switch 2 Direct when we know all the best stuff is going to be saved for that? Well, the good news is, my friends, I think this is going to be a Direct to remember despite it being prescribed, known, and short on content. So good morning, Mario. Good morning, Switch fans. I'm streaming this Direct tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. Please join me there. Link in the description down below. It's going to be one last hurrah. And I think this is going to be a condensed hurrah, but I think it has a chance to be a great hurrah. And it's sort of a weird dichotomy while Nintendo is doing all sorts of weird things where I really feel like you have to believe this can't be amazing because amazing is next week. But even if we know all the games, which I think we do, and even if it's pretty boring from like the filler stuff, like the middle is kind of mucky, I think there's potential for the opener and the closer to be so good that it steals the reception, and we absolutely give this an A Direct, despite the content being more of a C tier Direct. It's a weird thing to talk about, so let's dive fully in. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Hit that like button if you're excited for tomorrow's showcase. Okay, this Direct is weird because we've got two Directs announced, two at the same time, two dated, two coming, two in the same week. And you have to really take that into consideration. I think there's one reason, and one reason only for this Direct to exist, and it's not to make people remember the Switch 1. It's not to give one big final salvo for the Switch 1. Yes, like I think the Switch 1 wants to be acknowledged. I think Nintendo is very careful with their transition, and they want to make sure people know we're going to still support the Switch 1. But their primary goal here with this Direct, in my opinion, is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. We've heard dueling rumors about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond being the shining star of the Switch 2 Direct, being the shining star of the Switch 1 Direct. Not being at the Switch 2 Direct, not being at the Switch 1 Direct. I think the answer is it's at both. Metroid Prime 4 is the beautiful bridge between the two systems that is a game that is not yet out, incredibly anticipated, and exciting to show on both systems. You don't want to be digging through the archives of Breath of the Wild footage to say this is why you should buy a Switch 2. I know some of us might love the idea of playing Breath of the Wild at a better frame rate and with great performance, but when you're trying to advertise 400 big ones, you're not going to pull out a game from 8 years ago. You're going to show something brand new. And I think they want to segment the Switch 1 stuff in the Switch 1 pile, the Switch 2 stuff in the Switch 2 pile. That's why there's two Directs in the same week. Absolute bananas. But Metroid Prime 4 Beyond being an unreleased game, a game you still have yet to buy, a game that you want to buy, they make a razzle-dazzle performance on Switch 1, keep their promise, show why it's great on Switch 1, show why the game itself is exciting and new and fresh, and then tell you why you really should buy a Switch 2 if you want to play this new exciting game that they already showed you why it was great, but now it's greater. That is what Metroid Prime 4 Beyond can serve as a bridge. And that's why this Direct is so close to the other Direct, so that they can make that comparison, they can make that bridge. No mention of the Switch 2 in this presentation, so when Metroid Prime 4 Beyond pops up on the screen, it's not for Switch 2, it's for Switch 1. And that's great. It's Nintendo maintaining integrity and keeping a promise that they built years and years back. I love that, but I think we fully see it both times. I think it's the only game that can do that because it's unreleased. Other than that, though, I don't think this Direct is here because Nintendo has so many darn games. I think we know what those games are, and I feel like the third-party big ones, and even the indie big ones, are probably being saved for next week's show. But let's examine exactly what I think will be there, and why it still could be super memorable, because we know Metroid Prime 4 Beyond would be a humongous, amazing opener. The closer might get people even more excited. I do have two crazy predictions in case Nintendo decides to go absolutely bonkers, and believe me, I wish that they would. I'm just being realistic. I went back and I looked at Directs in the Nintendo Switch era that were in the 34 to 38 minute range, and the one I found that didn't include 3DS and was the shortest was 36 minutes, and it had three big first-party reveals. Mario Maker 2 opened the show, being revealed for the first time. Astral Chain came 2/3 of the way through as a title with a partner. And Link's Awakening was the one more thing, showing a remake being brought back. And I think we have the perfect analogy for all of these games. Metroid Prime 4 is the Mario Maker. Even though it's been shown before, it still really hasn't been fully shown. It's been teased, but I think they can kind of stretch that into, hey, this is the first big reveal for the game. Link's Awakening and Fire Emblem Remake kind of match up one-to-one as an older title being brought to the Switch back again, but with better, bolder graphics, a new vision, and maybe some extra content. Astral Chain doesn't really have an analogy, but I'm going to slot Kirby Planet Robobot in there. It just makes sense that those are the three games Nintendo will emphasize. and I don't know in 30 minutes that there's room for a fourth first-party announcement. None of these games are dated, and so that gives Nintendo a big opportunity to say, hey look, 3 more new awesome first-party games coming to Switch, and they cover the gambit of genres and the gambit of players. Metroid Prime 4 is the big, shiny, exciting first-person shooter exploration title. Fire Emblem Remake is the nostalgic title, bringing it back for fans that mostly played handhelds. Kirby Planet Robobot is for Kirby fans, more casual gamers, and maybe those who got a Switch and didn't really dabble in the 3DS era of Nintendo. This is a really great trio of games that I think can appeal to everybody Nintendo's trying to appeal to, and make the case that the Switch One is still a system we'll support, still a viable system, maybe not the most exciting system, but it's still a system that you can play games on and buy games on and give us money. I do think that this is going to be a Direct where there are a bunch of boring third-party and indie titles that aren't very glamorous. Everything glamorous will be saved for the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I don't think this is a case where Nintendo wants to balance the scales. I think they want Switch 2 to be more exciting. I think they want Switch 2 to look crazy cool. I think they want Switch 1 to be supported, but it is the system being phased out. It kind of reminds me of how Nintendo would showcase 3DS games at the beginning of the Switch 1 Direct era. They'd get them out of the way early and say, hey, we've got these coming. Oh, there's some extra content for Bowser's Inside Story. Oh, we're bringing you this WarioWare. But, after that, it's kind of like the Switch 1's the focus. This is getting a full separate Direct, so it will get shine. And it deserves to, because these games are important. Metroid Prime 4 is a very big deal, and hey, maybe it comes alongside a Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remastered announcement. I don't think that's that crazy, and I suppose that could be the fourth game, is whichever one of those they decide to drop. Probably Metroid Prime 2 remastered if we're going to go in chronological, logical order, but never say never with Nintendo. They've broken patterns with this Direct. Maybe they'll release 3, and then 2, and then 4, because that makes zero sense. But I don't think it's going to be a case where we're getting a ton of new stuff. Like, would a Mario baseball game be great? Yes. That's sort of a pie-in-the-sky wish for this Direct. Would a Golden Sun game be great? Yes. That's another one of my pie-in-the-sky predictions for this Direct. People throw out F-Zero, Star Fox, Kid Icarus. I think maybe the ship has sailed, and I also think that given the short length of this presentation, it is going to be focused on what we've heard rumored and what we know about. I don't even think Wind Waker or Twilight Princess will show up here, because I think that's something that they would want to put out one of two ways. GameCube Switch Online, or once Nintendo Switch 2 is announced and out there, get Zelda action on the Switch 2 and show why you should play it on Switch 2. And while they do want to cater to the audience they've already established, they are going to be an afterthought. This Direct is to make them think they're not, but we know that they are, for the most part. The big important thing is converting your audience to the Switch 2 and establishing this as a huge new way for you to engage with Nintendo. And that's why all the best, biggest games will be saved for next week, and all the best, biggest Nintendo first-party games will be next-gen only. There still could be some cool cross-gen games, but I don't believe that they are going to burst out with so many games in 1 week, and that's another piece of this puzzle of why I think this Direct is going to be on the much smaller side first-party. We know Nintendo is going to throw a huge salvo next week of first-party titles, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. Do they really want to have 11 or 12 announced Switch games out there? Even if it does cross 2 systems, that is so much first-party cake. You're really going to have everybody excited to pre-order and play 11 titles? It just doesn't seem like Nintendo, and it seems like absolute overload. Because these games can be played on both systems, it makes sense to limit the Switch 1 and then load up on the Switch 2. I think, like I mentioned in the announcement video for this Direct, that hey, some collections that have been saved and haven't come out yet, like maybe EA does have a Dead Space collection. They want to try to get a few extra coins out of that after killing the franchise. Maybe there is something that we haven't yet seen from a smaller AA size publisher. Maybe this is indeed where we get Hollow Knight Silksong, and I feel like Nintendo could leverage Hollow Knight as a way to make this Direct spectacular without actually being chock full of spectacular. If they give us Metroid Prime 4 and Hollow Knight Silksong, this will go down as one of people's favorite Directs, and yet it could be entirely empty in the middle. They could have their Kirby Planet Robobot, their Fire Emblem Remake, and a bunch of third-party muck, some indie games that don't look all that exciting, and maybe some titles that are being ported over that you played a few years back. But if it has Hollow Knight Silksong and it has Metroid Prime 4, this could be an absolutely amazing Direct for the fans. So while I think the content will probably struggle, I think the reception will be super huge. I think this is one of those rare cases where the content might be like a C grade, but the Direct is going to get an A+ grade because of what's there. Now, I will say that if Hollow Knight Silksong is not there, and there isn't something of comparable excitement, then I could see this falling kind of down to match the content level and being a C level direct. But I think people will still give it an A, because if it does do a Metroid Prime 4 Beyond deep dive, which I think is the only reason you have this direct so close to the Switch 2 presentation, then I'm expecting people to give it an A- or even an A, because they love the excitement around a new Metroid. And if they stealth drop Metroid Prime 2 Remastered, or just Metroid Prime 2 General, I guess, that is going to be a fun thing for people to play. This direct really can't go wrong, because you know that there is going to be another direct. Everything missing here then just makes it much more likely to show up there. The rumors of F-Zero and Star Fox, I think all of that, any of that, Donkey Kong, will all be saved for Switch 2. And even if it is a cross-gen release, it'll be saved for the Switch 2 era. Remember, they're going to announce a bunch of games in less than a week's time. I don't think they can have the bandwidth to put out all these games all at once. They got to save something. And I think given the Switch 2 will be fully revealed, they're going to be back on a normal schedule where they expect to have a September Direct, and maybe even a Mario 40th Anniversary Direct, and maybe even more Directs that we don't know about. Perhaps there is one around June and launch, and covering the launch window games that they didn't have a chance to fully deep dive into in next week's presentation. So there's a lot of Nintendo stuff on the horizon. A lot of Nintendo news coming. So much Nintendo news. And yes, they want to get some out there, but they don't want it to all get buried. They're not going to announce 6 first-party games and then have them all be buried by next week's more exciting Switch 2 announcements. So temper expectations, but know that this could be a really cool Direct, despite not being a really cool Direct. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think this one could be super sweet. I think it's going to be super known. And Hollow Knight Silksong is kind of like the tipper. Is it going to be, that was pretty neat, and Metroid Prime 4 looks awesome? Or is it going to be, wow, that's one of my favorite Directs because it had 2 games that have been so chronically absent and so desperately anticipated? I think the lineup for Nintendo is probably known, and maybe they squeeze a Mario Baseball in, but I could even see them using that as a calendar year one title for Switch 2 to get some Mario sports action out there and save it for part of their Mario 40th anniversary celebration, which has yet to be confirmed, announced, talked about, etc. So, small Direct tomorrow, but potentially mighty. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Let me know your take in the comments down below, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you on the live stream bright and early. Set those alarms, wake up. Let's enjoy one more final Switch 1 Direct. It's going to be a great time. Until that time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive there. Love you lots. SwitchForce out.